Hi, good evening students. This is Avinasham, your biology lecturer, and in today's class we are going to discuss about Anatropous ovule or Megasporangia. So this is very important from your examination part. So please understand it and practice it, because it will be asked both in theory as well as practical part. So that's why it is very important. So Anatropous ovule, otherwise it is also called as Megasporangia. So in flower, you might have seen the female part of the flower, which is also called as gynoecium, and it appears a bit like this. You might have seen it. This is what we call it as gynoecium. This part we call it as pistil or the carpel. Pistil or the carpel, and it can be divided into three parts. The first part is called as the stigma, and second part, this long slender part, is called as style, and basal bulged part is called as ovule. So this complete structure we call it as carpel or the pistil, and this represents the female reproductive part of the flower, which is called as gynoecium. And inside the ovary there is a spherical cavity. There is a spherical cavity, and inside the cavity, this cavity we call it as ovarian cavity or the ovarian locule. Please remember, inside the ovary there is a spherical cavity which is called as ovarian cavity or the locule, and inside the locule there is a structure which is present, and this structure we call it as Anatropous ovule or the Megasporangia, and this is attached to the placenta. This Anatropous ovule is attached to the placenta, and this is the structure which is called as Anatropous ovule, and we are going to discuss about Anatropous ovule in detail. So the diagram as well as the explanation part is very important. Please listen to it very carefully and practice it. So let us get into the Anatropous ovule. So I told you, Anatropous ovule, it is present inside the ovarian cavity, and that is attached to the placenta. So first let us learn how to write the diagram. So first we should draw the this oval shape, and this oval shape which is present inside the ovule, and it is called as embryo sac. It is called as embryo sac, and above the embryo sac there is a mass of cells which we call it as nucellus. This is the embryo sac, and this is the nucellus, and above the nucellus there is a structure, bilayered structure. It is a bilayered structure like this. It is a bilayered structure, and this bilayered structure, it is called as integuments. This is the inner integument, and this is the outer integument. So, and there is a stalk. There is a stalk-like structure, and this stalk, it is attached to the placenta. And this stalk-like structure, we call it as funicle. The stalk which is attached to the placenta, and also it attaches towards the other side to the Anatropous ovule. So this is the structure of the Anatropous ovule or the Megasporangia. So let us see the parts. The first part we call it as embryo sac. This embryo sac, it is also called as female gametophyte, and we have to discuss in detail about this embryo sac. So please remember, the embryo sac, it is also called as female gametophyte, and inside the female gametophyte we can see the egg cells. And I told you, above the embryo sac there is a mass of cells which are called as nucellus. It is not nucleus, it is nucellus, and this nucellus, it contains food material which is used for the nourishment of the embryo sac. This nucellus contains food material otherwise it stores the food material which is used for the development of the embryo sac. This is very important. What is the function of nucellus? So it will be asked in the exam, and you should write it as it nourishes the embryo sac. So that is about the nucellus. And these two structures, they are integuments. This is inner integument, and this is outer integument. This is outer integument. These two, they are called as integuments, inner integument and the outer integument. And you should remember the function. The function of these integuments is to protect the embryo sac. That is protective in nature. These integuments are protective in nature. And I told you about the funicle. This funicle, it is a stalk-like structure which is attached to the ovule on the one side, and the other side it is attached to the placenta, which is present inside the cavity, that is ovarian cavity. And between the funicle and the ovule, there is a junction. This junction, it is called as hilum. The junction between the funicle and the ovule. This is the region where the ovule get attached to the funicle, and this part we call it as hilum. Hilum, it is the junction between the ovule and the funicle. And next, you see here, there is an opening, and this opening is very important, and we call this opening as micropyle. We call this opening as micropyle. This is the opening through which the pollen tube enters into the embryo sac. You should remember this, and it is very important. Micropyle. This is the place through which the pollen tube enters into the embryo sac. This is very important. The micropyle. What is the function of micropyle? That will be the question. So micropyle, it helps the pollen tube to enter into the embryo sac. So these are the parts, and we can divide this Anatropous ovule into two poles. This pole, the basal pole, which is called as chalazal pole. Chalazal pole, and the upper part, this which is present towards the micropyle, this is called as the micropylar pole. This is the micropylar pole, and this is the chalazal pole. So this is about the Anatropous ovule. So we'll revise it once. So inside the Anatropous ovule, there is a spherical shaped structure which is called as embryo sac, and this embryo sac, it is also called as female gametophyte. Inside this embryo sac, egg cell is present, and above the embryo sac, there is a structure, mass of cells, which is called as nucellus, and it stores the food material which is used in the nourishment of the developing embryo sac. And above the nucellus, there are two layered structure, which we call it as integuments, the outer integument and the inner integument, and these two are protective in nature, which helps in protection of the embryo sac. And next is the funicle. This is stalk-like structure which attaches the ovule to the placenta. And next, the junction between the funicle and the ovule, we call it as hilum. And the important thing is the micropyle. This micropyle, it is the place through which the pollen tube enters into the embryo sac, that is during reproduction. Okay, this is the structure of the Anatropous ovule, and the important thing is you should practice the diagram. It is very important. Only the diagram will be asked for 3 marks if it is asked, and if it is asked along with the explanation, it will be asked for 5 marks. So there, for 5 marks explanation question, you should write all the functions of these parts: the funicle, hilum, micropyle, integuments, nucellus, and the embryo sac. So this is about the Anatropous ovule. I hope you understood the topic. If you have any doubts, you can message me. Thank you.